When I became dean in 2003, I half seriously told people that my main goal was to do no harm. I said that because of the high quality and reputation of the Annenberg School when I arrived. But in reality, I did have some goals. I wanted to build our faculty and our teaching and research in the area of digital communication technologies. I wanted to expand our footprint in the area of global communications. And I wanted to hire emerging new faculty to complement and learn from our very well established and prestigious faculty that was already here when I arrived. Fast forward to 2006. By then we had secured a $10 million endowment from the Annenberg Foundation to establish a new Center for Global Communication Studies. We had hired Monroe Price to give us an established leading scholar to run the center and fast-tracked our entry into this subfield. And we were ready to hire other emerging scholars in the area of global communication. As we began our first search, Marwan's name, who at the time was an assistant professor about to be promoted to associate professor with tenure at American University in Washington, D.C., kept emerging from various sources and people that I talked to as I tried to get a better sense of the field and where it was going. We invited him to participate in a joint ASC at Penn and ASC USC conference that was held in March of 2006 in Palm Springs. I was immediately impressed with Marwan and with his work and his presentation at that conference, even more so when I learned after the fact that he gave it with very little sleep, since the ceiling of his hotel bedroom had actually collapsed on him and he and his family had to be moved to another room in the middle of the night. Long story short, he became a visiting scholar in spring of 2007, and we hired him as an associate professor without tenure starting in the fall of 2007. Now, I mention the fact that we hired him without tenure because Marwan actually has given up tenure twice in his academic career, and I think that's an indication of the way he thinks about his own work, the way he thinks about his role, the confidence that he shows, and his willingness to take chances in order to both develop his own career and to develop the field of global communication, and that speaks volumes about him. In his time at Annenberg, 13 years by my count, he's been everything we had heard about him, everything we had hoped for, and even more. He is first and foremost, as you all know, an outstanding and prolific scholar. His work is among the best in the field of global communication, is really setting the standard and shaping that field. He is an outstanding teacher and mentor of our graduate students. He is a valued participant in ASC governance and a fierce advocate for graduate students generally and international students in particular. He's been an outstanding director of the Center for Advanced Research in Global Communication, CARG, which is the second iteration of CGCS, which he took over from Monroe in 2016 and which he combined with the Project for Advanced Research in Global Communication, which he had been leading for several years prior. And he has had outstanding service to the school, the university, and the field more generally in a variety of administrative roles that he's held since he's been at Penn and Annenberg. More importantly to me, or as importantly to me, has become not only a colleague, but also a valued friend over this period. We've traveled together fairly often to really interesting places like Cuba, China, and Lebanon. All of those travels involved work and building international relationships, but they're most memorable to me for the experience of spending time with Marwan and other colleagues outside of the confines of the ASC building. Others are likely to talk a little bit about our adventures in Cuba, and I have a lot I could say about that trip, as well as our travel together in China with Guobin Yang as our host, or Lebanon, where I got to see the city and country where Marwan grew up. Those were all great trips and great experiences. But instead, let me just say a word about my travels with Marwan to another place, Bala Cynwyd, where he lives, just outside of Philadelphia. I would on occasion drive Marwan home after ASC events in the evening, and as it turns out, he has as bad a sense of direction as I do, And so even though we made that trip fairly often, and he made it a lot more often than I did, we would often get lost. And so what should have been a 15-minute drive often took significantly longer than that. But during that time, we got to talk to each other, both about what was going on at Annenberg, what was going on in the field, and more personal matters. And I got to know Marwan at a level that was really satisfying. So I'm very grateful for those somewhat long rides back to your home, Marwan. I also visited with him for casual dinners at his house and many of the gatherings that he would hold for his graduate students, postdocs, and staff. And during those dinners and events, I got to know both Marwan better, but also his wife Uta and their children Bruno and Maya, and I cherish getting to know them and becoming close to all four of them. Now, it's commonplace to describe these kinds of transitions that we're marking today as bittersweet. But while I'm very happy for Marwan, in all honesty, it is much more bitter than sweet, especially losing him to one of our strongest competitors like Northwestern University. I'm already getting emails from colleagues and friends at Northwestern that are essentially gloating about the coup of them having Marwan now on their faculty and running one of their most important programs. I have to say that I consider having a role in hiring Marwan as one of the most important contributions of my tenure as dean, and I consider having become friends with Marwan and his family as one of the most valued opportunities in my own personal life. His leaving, ironically at the same moment that Monroe Price is ending his long and successful time at ASC, is a real blow, both to ASC and to me personally. That said, I know we will remain colleagues and friends, even at a much longer distance. I know that he will continue to be a leading voice in global communications research from his new perch as Dean of Northwestern University's Qatar campus. And I'm also confident that thanks to the institution building done first by Monroe and then by Marwan, ASC will continue its important work in the area of global communication. Eventually, we will find a new faculty director who will take CARG in new directions, just as Marwan did when he took over CGCS from Monroe. But none of this will make up for his loss, to ASC or, as I said, to me personally. I wish I could say this in person to you, Marwan, but I wish you all the best in your new position. You will be sorely missed.
I have worked with Marwan for all of my 11 years at the Annenberg School, and I think one of my fondest memories is our faculty trip to Cuba that we took, I believe, in 2016.
We were in Cuba having this amazing adventure, meeting people, seeing new things. And my main takeaway about Marwan was that while we were all really interested in the old-timey cars, Marwan was really interested in the old-timey cars and had a sort of list going of what he was hoping to see.
It was just an amazing trip, and he was just so wonderful and just very much wanted to immerse himself in the culture and meeting with all the different folks that we were participating in a conference with, and was even adventurous enough to come along on a spontaneous trip to try to reach the small town where my mother's family is from. And we didn't quite make it there. Our car, which was a Soviet-era automobile of some kind, got a flat tire, not even a quarter of the way there. And we decided rather than try to make the rest of the trip that we would visit a couple of smaller little artist villages that was only another hour outside of Havana.
So it was an amazing trip and a really fun way to get to know my colleagues and a really fun way to get to know Marwan.
I just appreciate that he always has that adventurous spirit. And he's just so kind and welcoming and just wants the best for everyone around him, his students. He's always thinking of the staff as well, and that's just going to be really missed.
Some of my favorite memories of Marwan come from the time when a contingency of us went to Cuba to attend a conference organized by colleagues at the University of Havana. It was great to see him engage in conversations on critical thinking and the Global South in the same language our host spoke, and I would say even with the same Cuban accent. And it was also great to share our little road trips, some of which involved tires exploding in the middle of the highway without us losing our composure, of course. We all know Marwan is a great scholar, but perhaps fewer of you know that he's also a great travel buddy.
So I think Marwan has a bit of a rap as having an intimidating air about him. And I can see that. Like, he's a formidable presence. But what I've found in the last 5 years of working with him is how open he is to spitballing. I have sent him whispers of a thought, fragments of an idea. And his response is never to sort of lean back, cross his arm, and ask you to defend your position. A typical Marwan response is actually the opposite. He's much more likely to lean forward, sort of go with your idea, in fact, give you more to riff off of. It's fun. Like, working with Marwan is fun. Now, I don't have any musical talent, so I know not of what I speak. But I imagine that working with Marwan is a little bit like having a jam session. And I'm gonna miss that.
I think one of my favorite Marwan memories has to be one of the first days I was working at Karg, and I had met Marwan before, and he'd been super nice to me and always very welcoming, but I was embarking on this new adventure and I was a little bit nervous, and so every time I would interact with him I would be super weird. And I remember once walking into the kitchen at Karg and he was making a coffee, and I offered him some cream, and he said he didn't take cream in his coffee, and rather than being normal and saying okay, I decided to ask him in depth about his dairy preferences, and I learned that he eats yogurt a lot but doesn't like cream in his coffee. And he was just so patient and so kind to me, and I was so awkward and so weird. And but I saw that day as an invitation to be really human with him, and to be myself with him, and to be willing to learn with him. And it was just a window into how kind he could be and how patient and warm he made the workplace. And so I had a lot of really great memories with Marwan and had a lot of fun at Karg and learned a ton. But my favorite memory has to be me drilling him on his dairy consumption and him letting me, because he was so invested in giving people space. And that's kind of what he did intellectually, but it's also what he did as a friend. And I feel really lucky I got to share in that and know that, he loves yogurt. So that's good information.
The fall of 2016 was not only my first semester at Edinburgh, but it was also the first time in my life that I was not living in Buenos Aires. I remember those first weeks were definitely challenging for me, with so many changes and adjustments. I remember we were taking pro seminar and it was Marwan's turn, and he came and introduced himself to us. And after that, we stayed and talked for a little bit. And I vividly remember that he asked me how I was doing in a way that I felt at the moment that he really understood what I was going through. So we briefly talked about the experience of being an international student, and even though it was a short conversation, I really felt seen and understood in a way that I don't know if he realized at the moment, but it was very meaningful for me. And since then, that support, that understanding from Marwan, who is now a mentor for me, have really meant a lot and have been very important in my time here. So I know it started there, and I really appreciated it.
My favorite Marwan story is when he would come in for coffee in the morning and stop by your office and just say, "Hey, how's everything going?" And he would genuinely want to know the answer to the question and wouldn't just be happy with, "Oh, it's fine." And that is something that I will really treasure going forward, because that's not the type of experience that most people have in their casual greetings in the morning. And I think it really speaks to the fact that Marwan genuinely cares and is concerned about not only global issues, but about the people around him.
One of my lasting memories of Marwan has to do with going over to the house for dinner early in his stay at Annenberg. My wife was away, so I walked over myself. They lived just a couple of blocks from my house. And when I sat down to dinner, I realized how unusual the situation was. Marwan's two children were talking totally in Arabic to Marwan. totally in Spanish to Ute, and totally in English to me. It was just phenomenal. It was highly unusual in my mind, but the kids totally got it. And it struck me right then and there how committed Marwan and his wife are to the idea of immersion in different cultures and understanding of different cultures. Plus, they were placing their own kids in great stead to deal with the world going forward. It's something that I won't forget.
One memory that I would like to share of working with Marwan is maybe a bit unfair to select as my memory, because after 7 years of working together and having so many wonderful memories, this one actually doesn't involve him directly, but I always come back to this one, which is on my first day of working at Annenberg, when Donna took me around to meet the rest of the staff. Every person that she introduced me to stopped to say, "You're so lucky to be working with Marwan." And I had already been working in academia for a while at this point, and I knew that this kind of sentiment coming from staff was actually very rare. And I knew that it was a good omen for my time at Annenberg, but also I think speaks to the kind of relationship that I've observed over the years between him and all members of the community, which is one of mutual respect and admiration, and just the human way that he approaches his professional interactions. I've been really lucky to be a part of that.
So my favorite memories of Marwan are ones where we'd be having a really nice big lunch, a Mediterranean lunch with arak on the side, the Lebanese alcohol. And we did this in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Philadelphia. But within that genre of memories, one that stands out, we were in Beirut on a conference, and we were in a restaurant. Also, eating and drinking. It was me, him, and Sarah Murad, and we got completely caught in the conversation and in the food, and then we realized that actually he was on the next panel, and he was very close to getting late. So the three of us paid, really quickly and rushed to the conference. And while I was sitting in the audience, really struggling to stay awake after all that food and drink, Marwan was there on the podium, saying all the smart and all the creative things that he says. And I was just sitting there and wondering how he does it.
Just finished my PhD, I applied for a fellowship at Penn, which required a letter of support from someone internal. I didn't know anyone at Penn at the time, but I knew of Marwan's work. I thought he would be the perfect person to write that letter, so I reached out to him by email, and a few days later decided to follow up with a phone call, which in my mind meant calling him and leaving him a message on his answer phone. So I prepared that message, called, and obviously Marwan picked up and must have thought I was a total lunatic for kind of splurting out this prepared message in a very fast and nervous manner. But Marwan being Marwan, he made me feel better straight away, and I remember that first conversation very fondly. And I think for me that captures something very unique, something I really appreciate about Marwan, this ability to engage with people on a human, on a very kind of genuine and generous way from the get-go, even with people he doesn't know. And that makes being around Marwan always interesting and fun.
We had a meeting at KARG a couple of years ago, and all of us fellows were sitting around the table at the KARG conference room, and in rushed Marwan, and he looked so excited, like he had just won all major book awards for Naked Blogger of Cairo. So why was he so excited at that moment? Because he told us that an incredible scholar from Vietnam had just emailed him, and she was coming the following week to give a colloquium at KARG. She is, of course, saying, but what stood out to me in this moment was that Marwan's sincere dedication to amplifying traditionally underrepresented voices in academia is real and sincere. And that I really appreciate for obvious reasons, but more importantly for the sake of knowledge production. I believe that while we all know that Marwan is one of a kind teacher, mentor, researcher, he also has contributed enormously and continues to contribute to academia by introducing distinct and valuable global voices. And he loves mint, and you can see the mint right behind me. Marwan.
Here's the thing about Marwan. He's a lover of beauty. Whether it's his lemon tree over at 3901, something he's cooked up where and he throws a picture up on Twitter that looks too pretty to eat, graffiti, literature, music. So whenever I see Marwan in the hall, we may just nod and pass and go on our way because we're busy. But if we ever stop and have a chat, it's going to be about the good stuff. Maybe a little gossip here and there. But in general, it's going to be the fun stuff, the beautiful things of life, because that's what Marwan's about.
One of my most precious memories of Marwan takes me back to Vienna in 2015, when we both attended a conference there. I don't remember much about the actual proceedings of the conference or the ideas that I've learned there, but I can vividly picture accompanying Marwan to an art exhibit at the National Museum, as well as taking endless lunch breaks checking out graffiti art in the local neighborhood. The way in which Marwan has intellectually come alive looking at this artwork, drawing connections to his project at the time and now successful book, The Naked Blogger, was truly engrossing and inspiring to watch. To me, the artwork has very little relevance to his project. It had nothing to do with the Arab Spring or with media per se, but he was watching the images of the body and drawing from those images and building his theories that became part of that book. Marwan has taught me that to be a good scholar, one has to seek inspiration outside of academia, and that one has to pursue ideas with relentless passion and curiosity of an artist.
So my first meeting with Marwan at Annenberg, I was pretty nervous about being at Penn, what was expected of me, what to expect of it, and so I decided to go behind the building and have a cigarette. And I thought no one went behind the building, but I since found out that that wasn't true. So in the middle of my cigarette, I turn around and Marwan's there. And I remember feeling a little bit panicked, like, oh, this is not how our meeting was supposed to go, with me, with a cigarette, is this unprofessional? And I think Marwan noticed my little panic, and he looked at me and he said, good for you. I have a cigar every now and again myself. And it was this very little moment, but it was such a metaphor for things to come, which has been, Marwan reminding me that we're all human and to, put things in perspective and take it easy. And we really need more of that in this crazy world that we're in. And I've always appreciated that. And I know that he'll continue to do that for students in Qatar.
Hi, Marwan. I've said it before and I'll say it again here. You are the scholar I want to be when I grow up. You are curious, you're passionate, you are adventurous when it comes to your research. You are kind, you are generous, and you are supportive of your students. I'm so very proud to say that you are my advisor and my mentor, and I'm even more proud to say that you are my friend. So, gushy stuff aside, congratulations on this amazing new opportunity and incredible adventure. And sending you all my love to you, Ute, Bruno, and Maya.
Marwan, we're going to really miss you at Annenberg and at Cork. I must say that I do feel a little bit sad by seeing you go, but mostly I'm very, very happy for you, for your new position, for everything that will come next. Congratulations and good luck.
Marwan, no words can do justice to how lucky and happy I feel to know you. As we say in French, this is by no means adieu, but au revoir.
I would also like to say, Marwan, you will be very missed, and that your family and future faculty and friends are very lucky to have you, and I wish you all the very best going forward.
Marwan, I'll miss going home with you by car, talking with you about books and politics, talking to you across the gap in the fence on the Kinwood Trail, and in general, having you as a colleague. Take care and be well.
Marwan, it's been such a pleasure having you as my colleague, as my friend. I've learned so much from you. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for the school. Thank you so much for your commitment to diversity and inclusion. And I'm really excited for you and your family as you start off on this new adventure. Congratulations, you'll be missed.
Marwan, I just want to say we're going to miss you, and Northwestern is so lucky to have you. And please make sure that you always come back to visit, because we know Philadelphia is your real home.
Marwan, I'm so happy to know you. Thank you for bringing me in as the first test driver of the CARC postdoc program. I loved every minute of it. I wish you to continue to perfect your art in your new position and to keep finding and weaving new sparks of inspiration into the many books to come.
Hi Marwan, I want to thank you for all that you have done for me over the past 4 or 5 years, the guidance, the mentoring, and I wish you the very best in what is to come.
So I'll just say thank you, Marwan. You have believed in me and supported me throughout my academic career, and in doing so, you have changed my life. So again, thanks, and I'll see you soon.
Marwan, you're embarking on this huge new challenge. And by that, of course, I mean moving continents in the middle of a pandemic. I'm sure the dean stuff will be a breeze. In all seriousness, I hope Doha is exciting and satisfying and does all the things we want a big change to do for us: widen our world, change our perspective, make us grow. I felt very fortunate to have you in my corner throughout this process, and we're obviously going to be in touch, and I'll find other ways to express this, but thank you and bon voyage.
Marwan, I hope you have an amazing journey. I hope that you are so excited to go, and we are so excited for you. Thank you for everything you have done for us. You are an extraordinary mentor and an even better friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and good luck.
Marwan, thank you so much for all the energy you brought to Annenberg and for making all that energy so contagious. We will miss you greatly, but we are also very excited to see you go to implement your vision of what research and teaching should look like in a global world.
Marwan, I'm going to miss seeing you from my window heading over for your midday swim to the gym. So here's hoping that you find yourself some very luxurious pools in Qatar and Chicago to carry on this very good habit.
Marwan, thank you. Good luck in your new endeavors, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Marwan, what can I say? It has been the absolute highlight of my professional career to have worked with you these last 7 years, to have built CARG with you and the amazing community that we have here. And as a boss and mentor and friend, I will miss you tremendously, but I'm also just really, really proud of you and really excited to see what you do next.